Hey there poetry pals, welcome back to another video. My name's Josie Alford and in this video I'm going to be rewriting 10-year-old poems that I wrote for my dissertation. Yep, that's right, 2024 marks 10 years since I submitted my undergraduate dissertation, where I wrote a collection of sonnets and an accompanying essay. I wrote 18 sonnets in total, and today we'll be rewriting Sonnet 1, which was inspired by Whoso List by Sir Thomas Wyatt. But before we go any further, please make sure you like this video, comment, share this video, subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. The engagement really helps small creators like me get found. While you're at it, you can follow me on social media. I am at Josie Alford Poet on all of the things. You can support this channel by joining me on Patreon. I run monthly writing and editing workshops, and you can find out more about that on my socials and on my Patreon. My book Faulty Manufacturing came out last year in March. It is available to buy where all good books are sold, but buy it from my website if you can. Thanks. Yeah, it's good. It's a good book. You should buy it. I made a whole bunch of videos of how I made this book, including like what went into making the cover and everything like that. So you should really check out those videos and buy it. Okay, so my dissertation was called Sundry Moods, a research-based creative writing study of the sonnet form and its development throughout English history. As I said, I wrote 18 sonnets that tracked and mirrored the sonnet form and its development through time in England. I also wrote an 8,000 word supporting essay that showed my research and explained my creative decisions, and I really wanted to turn it into a video essay for you, but I cannot find the essay portion anywhere. So upsetting. So this is going to be a series. I'm going to make one video about each sonnet and the creative decisions I make to update it and rewrite it for the new, older Josie. I wrote these sonnets aged 20, and I'm really interested to see what 10 years more poetic and life experience can make for them. So let's get into this sonnet, shall we? The first sonnet I wrote didn't have a title, and in fact almost none of the sonnets that I wrote actually had titles. I think only 2 did. The rest were just called Sonnet 1, 2, 3, 4. That's something that I'm going to change for this one. I think a good title is lovely. And I know even in modern day sonnet collections, they might not have titles, they'll just be numbered. But for me, I want to title my sonnets. So that'll be something that's changed. Anyway, let me tell you about the sonnet that inspired this one. It's called Whoso List by Sir Thomas Wyatt. Sir Thomas Wyatt was one of the first English writers to write sonnets, and he started by translating Petrarch, who was one of the Italian sonneteers, and also the reason why we have Petrarchan rhyme schemes along with Elizabethan/Shakespearean rhyme schemes. The more you know. So yeah, he was translating Petrarch, but eventually he started writing his own in English that were heavily inspired by Petrarch's work. So let me read you the original sonnet. Whoso list to hunt, I know where is and hind, but for me, alas, I may no more. The vain travail hath wearied me so sore, I am one of them that farthest cometh behind. Yet may I by no means my wearied mind draw from the deer, but as she fleeth afore, fainting I follow, I leave off therefore. Sivens in a net, I seek to hold the wind. Who list her to hunt? I put him out of doubt, as well as I may spend his time in vain. And graven with diamonds in letters plain, there is written her fair neck round about. Noli me tangere, for Caesar's I am, and wild for to hold, though I seem tame. This sonnet is written about unrequited love. But more than that, it's about falling in love with a woman beyond your social status and finding out that she is promised to a man of higher status than you, i.e. being a deer that is promised for Caesar. More specifically, it is assumed that Wyatt is talking about Anne Boleyn, who was married to King Henry VIII and with whom Wyatt was having an affair. The speaker uses the metaphor of hunting a deer, not just any deer, but one promised to Caesar. The speaker alludes to a tradition that holds that even 300 years after the first Caesar died, there were still stags to be found in the area that wore collars that said, "I belong to Caesar, you can't hunt me." He also invokes the Roman emperor as like a way of establishing status that is higher than the speaker, i.e. King Henry VIII. So let me tell you about my original sonnet and how this sonnet inspired me. With that context, I decided to write a poem from the perspective of the deer, or hind, in question. Hind is just like an old English word for deer. Here is the sonnet I wrote back in 2014. Whoso lists to hunt, I, the supposed hind sought after, will tolerate this hunt no more. Thy vain travail hath wearied me so sore. Where'er I go, thou art always behind, and thou must withdraw thy wearied mind from me. Thou knowest why I flee afore. I am not some mere prey to be caught, therefore leave off. Do not attempt to catch the wind. Whoso list me to hunt, put him out of doubt. Please tell him that he spends his time in vain. In spending it, he just incurs more pain. I want no diamonds my neck round about. Nolli me tangere, for no one owns me. Thou mayest say wild, I rather free. Now let me tell you, I've had to refilm this bit a couple of times, and like I reread this and each time I feel more love and affection for previous Josie. I knew from the beginning, before I even reread these for the first time, that the archaic language, the these and the thous, had to go for my rewrites. I really wanted my rewrites to be Josie Alford poems that were inspired by the original sonnets. I wanted there to be allusions to the source material, but I wanted it to have intertextuality rather than it being like a line for line pastiche or parody, which meant they had to flow as I naturally write, which is also pretty similar to how I speak. When it comes to the rules of sonnets, I wanted each of my rewrites to match the original rhyme schemes and to roughly match the rhythms. Not all of Shakespeare's sonnets were perfect iambic pentameters, so mine don't have to be either, baby! But they do have to flow. So here's how I got started on this one. I typed up the poem from my printed booklet and used Scrivener to type up and organise my poems, which, by the way, Scrivener's great. I started with sorting out all of the typos from when I originally typed up the sonnet, and then I went through the poem and made notes. I noted that the rhyme scheme is a traditional, well, almost a traditional Petrarchan sonnet, although the final sextet, the last 6 lines, has a not traditional Petrarchan thing. So the rhyme scheme for this one is ABBA, ABBA, CDD, CEE, whereas the Petrarchan sonnet is CDE, CDE at the end. Whoso lists to hunt actually means whosoever wishes to hunt, like whosoever wants to do this, which I found really archaic. That has got to go. The next thing I noticed was where I wrote the supposed hind, where the accent on the E is needed to make it fit the rhythm, and I don't love that. I also rely a lot on enjambment in this sonnet. I do in a lot of them. I don't actually hate that. I think it works to make it flow quite well, and it takes you away from the rhymey structure part of it, which I quite enjoy. Thy vain travail hath wearied me so sore. I just commented on this saying, I'm tired of your chasing me bullshit, which is pretty much a direct translation. I also highlighted that I used and to start a sentence, which is a bit cringe. Although I do really like the thou knowest why I flee before, I am not mere prey to be caught, therefore leave off. I think in my original first draft I had it as fuck off, but yeah, not very not a very like Wyatt there, so I had to do that. I also have the half rhyme of wind and mind, hind and behind. This is a half rhyme that Sir Thomas Wyatt uses as well, so that's why I justified it. But really, I wanna stay away from the visual rhymes. I don't mind a near rhyme, but it's got to sound similar. It can't be wind and mind. No. The other thing that I wanted to highlight here was that noli me tangere is Latin for don't touch me. And I really liked that. I think this is where when I go on to free write, this is something that like really influences it. And I also think the closing couplet is strong, which is noli me tangere, for no one owns me, thou mayst say wild, I rather free. I really enjoy the closing line of that. Obviously there's like, you know, archaic language in there, but it's still a strong line. So I'd sort of done my research and made my notes about it. And I took a little break and came back when I was fresh-brained and ready to roll. I started with translating the poem into everyday language. This, by the way, that is a really useful technique when studying poetry. It can really help you understand what is actually being said whilst appreciating the effects of certain word choices. So if you're ever studying a poem, definitely go ahead and like write it in normal language, translate it into how you would say it, take it down to its bare bones, because by that you understand the artfulness and the word choices that go into it. But if it is full of archaic language that's difficult to understand, you can also like use that as a method of understanding. And it's a really useful way of editing your own work as well, so that's why I chose to do that here. Then I typed up some notes and ideas that came to mind while I was working on that. I found myself getting really irritated by the image of the hunt, and I thought about women's safety and the whole man versus bear debate, which was huge on TikTok at the time. For those of you who aren't chronically online like me, the man versus bear debate asks the question, who would you rather be alone with in the woods, a man or a bear? And most women chose the bear because men are statistically more likely to harm women than bears are. And the subsequent uproar from men on the internet who had their feelings hurt by that was odd. So when I'd like made all my notes, I spent some time on Rhyme Zone. I took a few of my keywords that I particularly enjoyed and noted down any of the rhyming words that would be useful to use in my sonnet. Then I took a break and let the ideas percolate a little. Let them swirl around and brew for a minute. So after a break, I came back to free write. This is how I like to start all of my poems, as I often find that editing JC can get in the way of writing JC. I find myself thinking, well, that's not a good line. That's not a good line. I feel really, I get really antsy and I overthink it too much. Free writing is a way for me to step out of that. So I set a timer, I used the notes as prompts, and I got going. If you're going to try free writing, here are some of my top tips. Set a timer. There's something about a timer that allows me to stay focused, because I'm like, I only have to stay focused for 10 minutes. So let's just focus on writing solidly for 10 minutes. In a free write, there are no wrong answers. So you have to like just commit to writing whatever pops into your head next. And just give yourself permission to be rubbish. This isn't about writing a perfect poem the first time round. This is about just letting it come out. We're getting into the creative space. So set a timer, give yourself permission to be shit, and crack on with the word vomit. And that's what I did. After a while of free writing, I realised that I had started thinking in quatrains. I'd like taken the rhyme words and I was starting to think in the chunks that make up a sonnet. For those of you who don't know, quatrain is just a word for a chunk of 4 lines. This can be as a stand-alone stanza, or in the context of sonnets, it just means the rhyming chunk of 4 lines. And I found myself thinking in that way, and I found myself really meditating on the closing couplet as well. And so I decided to honour that and started scribbling out a sonnet and trying to throw it together. Where you see me tapping my fingers and muttering to myself here, that's where I'm counting the syllables and checking the rhythm to see if it fits. Saying poems out loud, especially when you're trying to write in a regular rhythm and rhyme scheme, is really important. And then it came time to type it up. This is where another round of editing happens. I check my rhythm by saying it out loud to myself. I check to see if it roughly makes sense, and I added punctuation. This is something that is fairly standard for all of my poems. And so there you have it, my first draft of the first poem of my rewrites. I'm going to read it to you now, but I want to be very clear that this is a first draft. The editing process isn't finished yet. This is where you come in. I would like you to give me feedback on this poem so that I can shape it into the finished draft. Let me know your feedback and any editing suggestions in the comments down below. Noli me tangere, after Sir Thomas Wyatt. The men who compare love to a hunt, they're the ones who complain about the friend zone, feel entitled to something now that they're grown, offended when we'd rather choose the bear. They don't understand that it's a nightmare to plan routes home, avoid walking alone because the men are monsters. I've not known of many bear attacks, but I know there are too many men who seem like a threat. That even the ones meant to protect us, they are just as likely to digest us. Wolves in sheep's uniform, and not just the Met. Can you see now why we're so fucking angry? You say not all men. We say too many. So let me know what you think. What works well? What doesn't work? What needs tweaking? Please let me know in the comments, and if you join my Patreon, you'll have an opportunity to access a Google Doc where you can leave me more detailed comments. One final thing I would really like your input on is the title of the collection. Originally, I called it Sundry Moods, which is a reference to a William Wordsworth poem called Nuns fret not at their convent's narrow room. I'll link to the sonnet in the description for you to have a read. I like this title and the fact that it comes from a poem about sonnets. We love a meta sonnet, a sonnet about sonnets. But I am not vibing with Sundry Moods anymore. Something that has come up for me and I kind of am enjoying with is the fact that the word sonnet means little song. So could there be something there? Let me know your thoughts. What do you think the title of this collection should be? Comment your selections, and over this series, if I do find one that I really like and I use that comment, then you will get a free copy of the collection when it is published. So that's it for this video. Subscribe for the next one in the series where I will be rewriting a poem about a dead cat inspired by Henry Howard's sonnet, Norfolk Sprung Thee. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, subscribe and turn on notifications. The engagement really does help small creators like me get found. I run monthly writing and editing and feedback sessions. So if you follow me on social media at Josie Alford Poet, or have a look in the links in the video below, you can check out all of that, and I would love to have you at some of my sessions. You can also join my Patreon, which gets you guaranteed slots at these writing workshops. And you can support the channel by buying me a coffee or heading over to Patreon or buying my book. There are so many ways that you can support me. If you can't use your money, that's totally fine. Just share this video with someone who might enjoy it. Watch a few of my videos and make a little bit off the advertising. That would be really helpful. Okay, yeah, I think I've said everything I need to say. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!